Hello, people. This will be Articles of Freedom number 12. Yeah, let me write that down so I don't lose track. Thank you. All right. Now, remedial instruction number 1 to Congress. Okay. Now, remember what I said about the dirty pool you can play with the judge about the bond. They have to have it with them as they're sitting on the bench. Because the federal judiciary dismisses for lack of standing or lack of jurisprudence these petitions by citizens who seek to remedy violations of the Constitution by public officials, the Congress of the United States shall adopt legislation to amend the federal rules of civil procedure and the federal rules of criminal procedure. Among affirming the jurisdiction of all federal courts to hear challenges to any constitutionality of any action by any state or federal public official elected or appointed, or agency or department, and to prohibit any and all federal courts from denying standing to any individual to challenge the constitutionality of any action by any state or federal public officials elected or appointed, and to assure that any state or federal judge who violates the rule related to paragraph 1 or 2 above shall be deemed to have violated his or her oath of office and shall be removed from office in accordance with existing rules and disqualified from holding public office thereafter, and defining the word of the mean proper within the context of the first paragraph above as follows. The term petition is not defined in the Constitution. Okay, I've already read this. I'm sorry, people. C. Hold it. No. I'm going to go over the people again. Petitions for redress that qualify for protection by the First Amendment include petitions to remedy violations of Constitution which are serious and documented, not frivolous, contain no falsehoods, are not absent probable cause, have the quality of a dispute, came from a person outside of a formal political culture, contain both a direction and a demand for relief, have been punctilious, meaning it follows formatting conventions. See, they get you even on that. You got to type it up the right way. Otherwise, it's going to be rejected, just like your English teacher used to reject your thesis papers or essays that you did in grade school. Involve constitutional principles, have been signed only or primarily by citizens, have been dignified, meaning authenticated, have widespread participation and consequences, are instruments of deliberation, not agitation, prove new information, do not advocate violence or crime. C. Remedial instruction number 2 to Congress. Because public officials in the legislative and executive branches refuse to respond to proper petitions for redress of grievances, the Congress of the United States shall adopt a concurrent resolution. 1. Affirming the fact that every public official, state or federal, elected or appointed, is obligated to respond to proper petition for redress of grievances where the term proper petition is defined in instruction B number 4 above. Affirming the fact that every public official, state or federal, elected or appointed, should respond to all other petitions for redress of grievances. D. Remedial instructions to the Supreme Court. Affirm the jurisdiction of all state and federal courts to hear challenges to the constitutionality of any action by any state or federal public official, elected or appointed, or agency or department. Prohibit any and all federal and state courts from denying standing to any individual to challenge the constitutionality of any action by any state or federal public officials, elected or appointed, or agency or department, and that remove any judge from office who violates the above for violating his or her oath of office, and disqualifying him or her from holding public office thereafter, all in accordance with existing rules. Now, people, when we're talking about here, this is having direct and in some cases, dire consequences for people's lives. That's why you have to know the Constitution. You have to know what you're talking about. You don't want to be hurting innocent people. And if you go in with a frivolous or not well laid out, well thought, that might in turn create a roadblock further down the road for the next person or organization or state or states seeking redress for grievances. You follow what I'm saying? Any excuse. I've got the documentation on my computer about a judge in Minnesota that ruled in the favor of a debtor from a bank because the banker came in and stated in court that money was printed out of thin air. Well, the judge, as well as the person that brought the suit, the petitioner, not the banker, not the banker or any of his friends, the person that was the victim of the banks, as well as the judge, they both ended up being killed. And guess what? No other Supreme Court will allow you to enter that precedence into your proceedings, even though it is a cited precedence. See, I'm not legally mumbo-jumbo literate as far as correct pronunciation sometimes. But I've got that documentation as well and can verify the truth and the validity of it, and you can find it as well as yourself. Barefoot Worlds should be a good place to start. All right, now, let me light this cigarette. I still got a couple minutes. E. Remedial instruction to the President. The President shall affirm the fact that every public official, state or federal, elected or appointed, is obligated to respond to proper petitions for redress of grievances. They've underlined proper. Not capitalized it, but they've underlined it. So that's how important it is you understand the Constitution in the context in which it must be stated. You can't just go in there, well, you violated my Fourth Amendment right. You're not supposed to look in my ashtray. It don't matter if it's open and whatever's in there. I'm protected. It's my constitutional right for privacy in a motor vehicle. Well, that's not how they see it, because you get permission to run on the highways. You have to register your car. You've got to have insurance. So no, it's not a freedom. It's a privilege. They've made it that way. Whereas as a free man on the land, you don't drive somewhere. You travel somewhere. And if anybody's in the car with you, they're just a passenger on their going to the same direction. So, you know, this is the idiocracy and the insanity that we face. So I do, like I said, I do stuff from the past to show the now, the reasons of the now. And that's why I brought up the fact about the Supreme Court justice in Minnesota who was killed along with the petitioner after the banker admitted money was printed out of air, and now it can't be used in any other court case. What is wrong there? Seriously, what is wrong? Now this next one is going into remedial instructions to each of the several states. As we know now that a lot of states are looking at reasserting their right over that of federal. And that is their right under the Constitution as well as the constitutions of the state, that if the federal government is not indeed following constitutional procedure and law, that it is the right and it is the duty and the obligation of said states to block it, to bring them to task, as well as upon the citizenry of the country.